Hello everyone, I'm Shreya Dhoundial. Anyone trying to book a slot for vaccination on the Coven app already knows this. India is running short of vaccines, desperately short. In the last 20 days or so, as the second wave hit and our daily COVID numbers started increasing rapidly, our vaccinations started declining. Today, India is vaccinating just half the number of people we were a month ago. If we continue at this rate, it will take at least 3 years to inoculate everyone in India. How did we get here? How does a country that produces 60% of the world's vaccines not have enough COVID vaccines for itself? For one, of course, India didn't place big advance orders with vaccine makers like the US did. And then when we finally did place our first order as late as January, it was only 1.1 crore doses from SII. Then, of course, SII ran out of raw material because the US had put an undeclared ban on exports. But what do we do right now? What will help fix the problem? Patent waivers or a steady supply of raw materials for the vaccines? We are looking at all of that on the show today. Kiran Majumdar-Shaw, the founder and executive chairperson of Biocon, is on the show today. But before we go any further, here is India's vaccination story in numbers. In Andhra Pradesh's Guntur district, people jostling with the police to get inside a vaccination center. Most returned without a jab. India, the vaccine capital of the world, is struggling with its vaccination drive. The pace of vaccination has come down by almost half from its peak. On 5th of April, India vaccinated over 43 lakh people. But yesterday on May 6th, only 23.70 lakh vaccine doses were administered, a sharp drop of 45%. Key reason? Shortage, as demand has outpaced the supply. As new infections shot up mid-April, vaccinations started dropping week after week. India administered 2.48 crore doses in the week between April 3rd and 9th. From there, it was all downhill. Week on week, the number of people being vaccinated kept falling, and this week, that is May 1st to 6th, we have managed to vaccinate only 99.83 lakh people. That is a drop of almost 50% in a month. This slowing down in vaccination has come when India's COVID case load has steadily increased to cross the 4 lakh mark. In April, on an average, India was vaccinating 30 lakh people every day. This has drastically come down to 16 lakh people being vaccinated daily this month. The reason? Vaccine shortage. Both Serum Institute of India and Bharat Biotech are currently producing 70 to 80 million doses a month, whereas 200 to 250 million doses are required to run the vaccination program to full capacity. This drop is significant as we have now over 2.5 times more people to vaccinate after May 1st. In the early phases, India had opened up vaccination for 34.5 crore people. Now we have 94 crore more people to vaccinate. So vaccine shortage combined with a substantial increase in the number of people eligible for vaccination has slowed down the entire vaccination process. The states so far have got a vaccine supply of just 17.35 crore doses. As a result, only 12 states and the Union Territory of Jammu and Kashmir have been able to roll out the vaccination drive, and that too partially for the 18-plus population. Out of the 12, 2 states, Chhattisgarh and Rajasthan, yesterday announced that they are suspending the vaccination drive because they have run out of vaccines. Tamil Nadu and Kerala, currently reporting worrying COVID numbers, have run out of vaccines for even the 45-plus category. If we go by the current pace of vaccination, it will take at least 9 months to inoculate the entire 18-plus age group with 1 dose of the vaccine. With Santosh Chaubey, I'm Shreya Dhoundial. Okay, so where does India stand on the vaccination front? 164 million doses have been administered so far till date, which means that 9.5% of our population has received at least the first jab. 34 million people have been fully vaccinated.
which means only 2% of the population right now is fully vaccinated, both doses. What is our target? 800 million doses. Then the question, do we have enough vaccines? Look at our daily production. Our daily production is 2.5 million doses. Our daily inoculation is 3 million doses. We are filling the gap by dipping into our existing inventories. We need 250 million doses every month to vaccinate everyone in this country. Are we going to get more vaccines? Let's look at Covishield first. That is doing a bulk of the heavy lifting. It has already supplied 150 million doses. India has paid an advance of 110 million doses. SII says it can produce 100 million doses a month. Now, Bharat Biotech. Bharat Biotech's Covaxin, 30 million doses have already been supplied, and advance has been paid for 50 million more doses. And 50 million, Bharat Biotech's production target is what? It is 58 million doses a month. And what about the Russian vaccine, Sputnik V? Well, 1.5 lakh doses have already landed in India. This happened last week. It has not been distributed so far. And India has paid an advance for 250 million more doses. Given where we stand, and not just India, given where all developing nations stand, how does one fix the vaccine shortage? As rich nations like America sit on millions of extra doses of COVID vaccines, poorer nations are struggling. India and South Africa have approached the World Trade Organization asking for a patent waiver. America, after much criticism for its selfishness, has supported the move. But will it help fix the crisis we are in right now? Unlikely, say most experts. Swastika Das getting us the story.
Vaccines, like much else, is a commodity it seems only richer countries can afford. As countries like the United States of America sit on 100 million extra doses of the COVID vaccines, poorer nations like India, South Africa, Bangladesh face a crippling shortage. For India, it's an odd place to be in, given that we are one of the largest producers of vaccines and medicines in the world. To try and fix this inequity, India and South Africa moved the WTO, that's the World Trade Organization, for a patent waiver of COVID vaccines for the duration of the pandemic. Essentially, what this would do is enable the sharing of the AstraZeneca and Pfizer vaccines formula and technology with whoever who can produce it. That would ensure that more vaccines and more affordable vaccines would be available to poorer nations. The proposal, sitting at the WTO since October last year, got a huge boost when the United States of America changed its stand and supported the waiving off of intellectual property rights for COVID vaccines. But will it fix the vaccine problem we currently face? Unlikely, say most, including Anthony Fauci.
It doesn't solve the problem that India has today and tomorrow and the next day. What you need now is vaccines to put into someone's arm. You will need in a year or in 6 months the capability of manufacturing by technology transfer, but that's going to take several months to a year to get running.
Companies like AstraZeneca and Pfizer are obviously opposing the move, arguing that eliminating patent rights will not help speed up production. Microsoft founder Bill Gates has also expressed reservations, saying it's not economically feasible and not safe to produce vaccines in developing countries which are not well equipped.
People are very serious about the safety of vaccines. And so moving something that had never been done, moving a vaccine from, say, a J&J factory into a factory in India, that it's novel. It's only because of our grants and our expertise that can happen at all. And every manufacturing process has to be looked at in a very careful way.
In any case, expecting a partial relief in patent rights is a lengthy process. The entire issue will be taken up by the World Trade Organization not before November. Even if India manages to win the support of all 164 countries that are members of the WTO, a detailed plan needs to be worked out on addressing bottlenecks in supply chain, raw materials, which could take more time. And time is one thing the world right now simply does not have. With Swastika Das, I'm Shreya Dhoundial.
Kiran Majumdar-Shaw, chairperson of Biocon, is with me on the show. Ma'am, thank you very much for sparing the time to be with us here on Debrief. My first question to you, and the simplest question to you right now, is will a patent waiver help fix the vaccine shortage we are currently facing?
Well, I personally believe that patents are not the stumbling block at this point in time. I do believe that we need export waivers from the US so that raw materials and consumables can reach vaccine makers in India so that they can ramp up vaccine production. That is the main stumbling block. Not to say that, patent waivers are very important during a pandemic, not just for vaccines, but for medicines, for diagnostics, etc. But I personally believe that right now our biggest challenge is vaccine production. And for that, I don't think patents are coming in the way. Because if you must know, Moderna had suspended its patents some time ago, and that gave enough opportunities for companies to develop mRNA vaccines, copying even if they wanted, the Moderna vaccine itself. But that was not the real stumbling block. So let's be real and let's be practical, because any patent waiver at this time is not going to allow you to produce generic vaccines in a hurry. So let's be very clear about that. Moreover, let's not forget that most of the vaccines being produced in India are patented vaccines. And so we've got access to patents. It's not like we don't have access to patents. So whilst there is a global cry for patent waivers, which is the right thing to do during a pandemic, I don't think that's the issue right now.
But ma'am, here's the question then. If you need more vaccines and if you need cheaper vaccines, then you will have to let more people produce it. Then why are you saying that patent waivers at this point will not help?
No, I'm saying a patent waiver in general can help during any emergency, during any health emergency. But at this point in time, please understand that even if you get a patent waiver, it takes months to develop a generic version of any vaccine. It can take a year to do that. So how does it help us today? And as I said earlier, let's remember, whether it is the AstraZeneca vaccine, the Novavax vaccine, the Sputnik vaccine, or the J&J vaccines, all these are going to be made in India. Some of them are already being made in India. There was no issue about patents in that, in developing those vaccines. So getting a patent waiver right now, how does it help us?
So what do we do?
No, I'm telling you what is required right now are the consumables and the raw materials to ramp up vaccine production. Please ask the vaccine manufacturers. That is their biggest challenge today. They are not getting consumables and raw materials from the US. And that's why I said they should give export waivers from the US. If they give export waivers, we'll get the raw materials and the consumables that are required to ramp up manufacturing. They can almost double their manufacturing if they get the raw materials and consumables from the US and maybe other parts of Europe. But that's not happening right now.
But
that's why our production is so low.
But should we not have anticipated all these roadblocks? The fact is that India is the largest vaccine maker in the world. We produce 60% of the world's vaccines. Where did we get to? How did we get to this situation where we don't have enough for ourselves?
Well, it is about supply chains. We may be the biggest producers of vaccines and medicines in the world, but the fact is we do rely on raw materials and consumables on other parts of the world. We don't make everything ourselves, right? So let's remember what supply chains are all about. This is a supply chain issue. We need to be a vertically integrated, vaccine maker or a medicine maker to really make that tall claim. Today, we are very dependent on China, on US, on Europe, and many, many parts of the world for many of our essential raw materials, key starting materials, and consumables.
You know, ma'am, there are big pharma companies who are already saying that a patent waiver, as and when it comes, will set a very bad precedent, that there will be no incentive for firms to invest big money and resources to develop a vaccine next time there is a crisis like this.
I think that's a completely wrong argument for them to put up at this point in time, because really they did not invest such big monies. Okay, everything was mostly funded by public funding. Okay, whether it was BARDA, whether it was COVAX, whether it was the European Union, other countries who also put up money to support vaccine development and scale up and manufacturing of vaccines. I think this is a very incorrect statement to make, because they really put in very little money. Moreover, the regulatory system also came to their help, because they abbreviated the regulatory pathway, which normally costs a lot of money. So what is the actual money they put in? Very little. They just basically licensed, the assets from small biotech companies. So it's very wrong for them to make these claims, at least for the vaccines.
Ma'am, given the situation we are in right now, where people all around us have been trying to book slots for vaccination on the COVIN app, it's not happening. People are wait till 12 o'clock at night, hoping that some slot opens. Any guesses on how long India's vaccine crisis will last?
Well, look, let's look at all the facts and the data out there. First and foremost, I think the US has enough vaccines to cater to its own needs. I think the US has to look beyond America to help the world, okay? Because it has already vaccinated a large number of its own population. It has enough vaccine reserves. In fact, they should be sharing some of the vaccines with the outside world. And they therefore should be allowing raw materials to come to countries like India, where the vaccine manufacturers can ramp up vaccine production. Right now, at the present capacity that the companies in India are able to deliver, we will not be able to vaccinate our population for more than a year down the line. In fact, it will go well into 2022 before we can even vaccinate a decent part of our population. But if you think about it, if we are able to double vaccine capacity, we can do it by the end of the year. So I think that's really should be the focus as to how do we double our vaccine capacity from what we have today, because that is what will actually get us into a safer situation.
Ma'am, you have spoken about America, you have spoken about some richer nations as well. Should we have anticipated this vaccine inequity? It is, after all, a rich man's world, pandemic or no pandemic.
Well, that is the debate. That's the central debate. How do you ensure vaccine equity? And that's where this whole debate is coming from. And this is where the patent waiver, sort of gesture is coming from. But it won't solve the present problem of vaccine equity, I'm sorry. Because unless you get more vaccines out to the world, you can't provide that equity. And this inequity will continue. So I think there is a need for those that produce vaccines, those that have vaccinated a large part of their populations, to share vaccines with the rest of the world. I think the most affected are the LMIC countries. I think the WHO chief, Dr. Tedros, clearly said that as of today, only less than 0.5% of LMIC country populations have been vaccinated. That is a disgrace. That is shameful. I mean, we must all get together, because no part of the world is safe until every part of the world is safe. So we must basically vaccinate every part of the world. So just by, creating bubbles around the affluent world is not going to help them. They have to. This is the first pandemic crisis that has shown the world that the whole world needs to be healthy. Okay? You cannot neglect one part of the world and its disease burden and say, as long as we are safe and healthy, everything is fine. It is not fine. I think this is the first time we've all realized that the world needs to be healthy and safe.
We'll leave it there, Kiran Majumdar. Thank you very much for joining us on Debrief this evening. Up next, is the world any closer to getting vaccines for kids? It's looking like it. A report coming in from the United States of America. Do stay with us. Welcome back. More than 40% of adults in the United States of America are now fully vaccinated against COVID-19. But what about kids? When can they get vaccinated? For some kids, it could be as soon as next week.
Ready?
This is just trying to beat the virus, try to get everything back to normal.
For Ben Dropic, that meant taking part in a Pfizer-BioNTech COVID-19 vaccine trial for kids 12 to 15 years old. And now, a federal government official tells CNN the Food and Drug Administration is ready to extend its emergency use authorization for that vaccine by early next week. Moderna's president says that company is aiming to have its vaccine authorized for kids 12 and up by this summer. And Novavax has just expanded its phase 3 trial for the same age group. For younger kids, Pfizer and Moderna are both testing on children as young as 6 months and expect to ask the FDA for emergency use authorization for those ages later this year.
I try my best.
Teeing up President Joe Biden's suggestion that kids should be back in the classroom by this fall. Getting there won't be easy.
It's going to take a truly coordinated effort to achieve both the rollout of COVID-19 vaccine in adolescents and a rapid catch-up of routine vaccinations.
But health experts say it's crucial.
If we don't immunize that group, that's going to leave a big part of the population that's susceptible to the virus and be able to continue on the pandemic.
If we keep vaccinating Americans, I think by July 1st, you're going to see much of America feel close to normal.
I'm Britt Conway reporting.